If you're planning a trip to Nashville, this podcast is for you. Here's a 30-second teaser of the episode.
Nashville has such a special energy. It's been able to retain its authenticness and character despite becoming a huge tourist destination. Broadway is something that you will not find anywhere else. It's just bars after bar, live music. Some of the bars are 5 stories tall with different live bands playing on each floor. For the most part, you are going to need a car if you're in Nashville. The city is not super public transportation friendly. You can sometimes find cheaper hotels in Music Valley, which is a little bit farther out of the city. That's where the Grand Ole Opry House is located and where you can still smell music there as well.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Travel Lemming podcast. I'm your host, Betty Hurd, and today's destination spotlight is Nashville, Tennessee. I'm joined by our Nashville expert, who's an amazing writer and editor for Travel Lemming. Tons of fantastic content on the website. So, welcome to the show, Elizabeth Demolat.
Hi, Betty. Thanks so much for having me on the podcast today. I'm so excited to be here and talk about all things Nashville. I grew up in a small town in Mississippi, and I spent my summers coming with my family to Tennessee. We visited places like Gatlinburg, Chattanooga, Memphis, and of course, Nashville. Since I've moved to Nashville, I've gotten the chance to find out more about the city and really get to enjoy everything that makes it so great. I have been writing with Travel Lemming for several years now, and I've been an editor with Travel Lemming for the past year and a half or so.
Amazing. Yeah, it's so good to have you here, and I'm really excited to talk about Nashville. I think it's a top bucket list US city for a lot of people, me included. And I've technically been there, but only for 16 hours on a work layover, so I don't really count that. So I'm really excited to hear about your expertise living there. So let's jump right in. Will you give us some background on your experience living in Nashville?
I moved to Nashville in 2019, and before that, I got the chance to travel a bit around the world and see a lot of different places. Since moving to Nashville, I have had 2 kids, and now we are not traveling quite as far as we did in the past. So I'm taking this time to really explore Nashville, get out and see what the city has to offer. And then we're also taking trips within 2 to 3 hours of Nashville as well and getting to see new parts of Tennessee. So during the weekdays, I'm taking my kids out. We're in the car. We're going to cute little bakeries. We're checking out coffee shops. And then on the weekends, we're going a little bit farther, checking out state parks and some of the different places around Tennessee.
Amazing. How old are your kids?
My youngest is 8 months old, and my oldest is about 2.5. So they are
Amazing.
coming along with us.
Yes, that seems they're at an age where you gotta take them with. That's great though, because I think a lot of people that we've talked to from the Travel Lemming team don't have kids, or at least don't have really young kids. So I think a
Mhm.
lot of listeners will appreciate your insight as a mom and, just being inclusive of bringing along the whole family on your local travels.
Yes, we just go with the flow, and sometimes it goes well, and sometimes, it's a disaster.
Yes, so is life, but you're doing awesome. So what makes Nashville unique to you?
One thing that people really associate with Nashville is the music industry, especially country music. So many country music stars record here, and a lot of singers have gotten their start in Nashville. So that's why a lot of people do want to come to the city. But I think that Nashville is a really great place for creative people in general. There's a lot of really good energy in Nashville just creatively. And there are also people doing really great things when it comes to restaurants. You can go to a lot of different museums and also learn about history while you're in Nashville too.
Yeah, the music scene seems pretty unparalleled there. So, aside from music lovers, what kind of travelers do you think should visit Nashville?
I think there's a little bit of something for everyone. Obviously, if you're a huge music fan, there's plenty for you here. But I think it's also really great for families. There's lots of family friendly things here. There's the Nashville Zoo. And then also, it's really easy and friendly. Like if you're from a smaller area and you're nervous about coming to a bigger city, I do think Nashville is one of the ones to come to.
Awesome. So, I know we're going to talk about the best things to do, time of year, how to get around Nashville, all of that good stuff. But I like to start with where to stay. So, where should someone stay in Nashville who has never been before?
I usually recommend that visitors stay in downtown for their first time. That's where a lot of the big Nashville attractions are. So you have things like the honky tonks on Broadway, which are bars playing live music. You also have a lot of the museums like the Country Music Hall of Fame and the Johnny Cash Museum. And it's a walkable area, so it's good if you don't want to have to find your way around the town.
Great. And that's like a lot of people go for bachelor and bachelorette parties. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So the bars are very popular. The nightlife is unlike anything you will find anywhere else.
Awesome. So, what about budget travelers? What's like a cheaper area of the city for people to stay?
For budget travelers, it is harder to find places to stay in Nashville. It's a popular place to be. You can sometimes find cheaper hotels in Music Valley, which is a little bit farther out of the city. That's where the Grand Ole Opry House is located and where you can still listen to music there as well. But you will need a car to drive into the city from Music Valley.
So, for people who don't know, what is the Grand Ole Opry House?
The Grand Ole Opry House is where the Grand Ole Opry is recorded, and this is a live broadcast that goes out on the radio. It's introduced country music to households all across the US, and stars like Dolly Parton and even Elvis Presley have been on the Grand Ole Opry. And it's also where you might hear some up and coming stars as well.
Very cool. So the music legends definitely go way back in Nashville.
Yes. Mhm.
What are some other notable places to stay in the city?
Another place I really recommend is to head to Midtown and stay at the Graduate Hotel. This is a fun, kind of Dolly Parton themed hotel. It has a lot of rhinestone glamour. Everything is pink and girly. There's even a rooftop bar.
Oh, that's awesome. I love the graduate hotels. There's one actually in Tucson where I'm recording right now. It's where I'm from. And they're really good at just making everything like they really stick to the theme of the city they're in. So I've
Yeah.
been to the one in Tucson, I've been to the one in Eugene, Oregon. The graduate hotels just have more personality than probably any place I've ever stayed in the States.
Yes. I've stayed overnight at the one in Nashville, and I also sometimes just go there to work in the coffee shop just because it has a very good, fun vibe.
I love that. Any other places you recommend staying in Nashville?
Another area I recommend is actually outside of Nashville. So if you want to do budget and you're okay with driving further, some of the suburbs like Hendersonville are great places to stay. The accommodations are kind of like your basic chain hotels, but it is cheaper than trying to stay closer into the city.
So you've mentioned a couple times driving. So I want to get right into how to get around Nashville. What are the best ways to navigate the city?
For the most part, you are going to need a car if you're in Nashville. The city is not super public transportation friendly. We do have a couple bus lines, and there is a bus line that will take you from the airport to downtown if that's how you're coming into Nashville. So that's a good option if you want to stay downtown. But as far as getting around the other neighborhoods, Nashville's grown pretty quickly and doesn't really have the infrastructure that you might expect in a larger city. So I suggest either renting a car or maybe planning to do a ride share if you're not going to have a car.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you think that Ubers and Lyfts are fairly affordable if you don't necessarily want to rent a car?
I would say so. Just be careful if you're trying to like leave from a concert. The prices tend to go up when thousands of people are leaving at the same time.
Great point. Okay, awesome. So, for the most part, not the best public transportation. Probably should rent a car, especially if you want to stay in a more budget friendly area so that you can
Yes.
drive into downtown because downtown's probably the more happening, party central, more expensive prices,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Now, if you
Okay,
want to stay in downtown, you don't really have to have a car.
that's a good point. If you don't want to drive, you can just walk everywhere and pay a little bit more in your accommodations.
Yes.
All right, good to know. All right, well, for our next segment, what are some of the best things to do in Nashville?
The top of the list is definitely the Ryman Auditorium. I talked earlier about the Grand Ole Opry. The Grand Ole Opry actually started in the Ryman Auditorium. It is a converted tabernacle that is now a music venue. So it still looks kind of like a church. So when you go in, you sit down in the pews that all surround the stage. There are stained glass windows in the back of the building, and it's just a really great experience. Every show I've been to there, like the artists just have such a great connection with the fans in a way that you don't get in other music venues. So I definitely suggest that one. Even if you just want to take a tour of it and you're not able to see a show, that's the top place to go.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. What are some other great things to do?
Another thing I tell visitors to do is to make sure you go to the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum. This is where you'll find all about the history of country music, not just in Nashville, but around the world. So there are, I believe, like 2 million artifacts related to country music at the Country Music Hall of Fame. So you really learn more about country music in general and also how it relates to the city.
Are you a fan of country music?
So I grew up in a small town, Mississippi. So I did grow up listening to country music. So
Yeah.
I recognized a lot of the singers there. And there's also a lot I didn't know when it came to how country music started and finding out about like the roots of country music.
Yeah. Do you think that somebody who doesn't like country music would enjoy Nashville's music scene?
I think if you enjoy music in general, you will at least be impressed by the quality of the singers, the artist.
Yeah.
It's really like nothing that you will hear anywhere else. Like everyone is good, which makes sense. They're here for that
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah, they
Mhm.
kinda have the best of the best. So, if you're listening to this and you're not a fan of country music, don't knock Nashville, okay? It's still got some really talented, awesome people, and you might change your mind. You might really like the country music that you hear there and when it's in person and you're seeing how talented these people are.
Yes. And country music is definitely more than just what you hear on the radio. There are a lot of artists doing cool things that don't always make it to the mainstream country radio, too.
Very true. Alright, so what else is there to do in Nashville?
Another place I suggest is the Grand Ole Opry House. I know I said the Opry started in the Ryman Auditorium, and in 1974, it moved to its own location out of Music Valley. So, this is something where even if you're not a fan of country music, I've been to the shows, I had a great time, and I do suggest at least checking it out.
Awesome, and you mentioned earlier Broadway, like downtown where all the bars are. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So Broadway is something that you will not find anywhere else. If you listen to country music, you've heard about honky tonks and neon signs. Broadway is almost impossible to describe. It's just bars after bar, live music. Some of the bars are 5 stories tall with different live bands playing on each floor. People go there to have a good time. There's line dancing. There's usually lots of drinking. And it's one of the most popular things to do.
Yeah, I like I said earlier, I've been to Nashville once. It was for one night for a very short amount of time, but I went out with my crew because I really wanted to see Broadway and we were right there. And it's so true. It's like every single place, it's just door to door to door is a different bar and there's several floors and there's some incredible singer on each floor and like it's just I've never experienced anything like it. I've never seen such an appreciation for live music the way I have in Nashville, and it just made me fall in love with the city immediately. It's so cool, and like we were talking about, I'm not a huge fan of country music personally, but I was just, like, enthralled by these artists. They were so talented, and it actually, kinda opened my eyes to country music a little bit that night.
Yeah, so it really is amazing, a lot of them are doing covers. They know so many songs, they're able to just, like, pull out so many different styles of music.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
something else.
And a lot of them are also, like, artists who are trying to also make it big in the music industry here, and that's kind of not their day job because it's open 24/7, but kind of their, like, side gig as they're
Yeah.
working on their own music and work.
Yeah, it's very cool. And even if you're not into the drinking scene, like I know I'm not into that anymore. I I still think it's definitely a place that you can really enjoy even if you're not going and, having a bunch of drinks with your bachelors and your bachelorette parties. Yeah, I really think that Broadway is a place for anyone.
Yes, crowds are not my favorite thing, but it's worth it to at least head down the street once.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some other specific tips or maybe even hidden gems that travelers should know about before visiting Nashville?
There's a lot to do outside of downtown Nashville as well, and I really recommend getting out of downtown if you're able to and checking out some of the neighborhoods. In a place called Green Hills, there is an independent bookstore. It's called Parnassus Books, and it's owned by author Ann Patchett. There are lots of special events there where you can listen to authors talk, and it's a really great creative space in the city.
Very cool. So they kinda have, like, famous authors or up and coming authors come and kinda display their work?
Yes, and there's also a local section if you want to find out more about authors in the area too.
Oh, that's awesome. Very unique.
Yeah. Another place I recommend to almost everyone, and I talk about it all the time, is the Tennessee State Museum. This is a free museum that basically guides you through the history of Tennessee. And my favorite thing about it is the Children's Gallery. There's not a lot of free things to do in Nashville, so it's nice to have this space where the kids can come and play. My daughter is like the 2.5, and she loves going there. She likes to play at the train table for Chattanooga, and it's a good space in general. Another thing I love that really gets overlooked is the Southern Festival of Books. This is a free festival that takes place every year in October. And again, lots of authors, hundreds of authors from around the area come and give talks on their books. It's really interesting to hear all the different subjects, and also a lot of the authors are really good storytellers as well.
Okay, so if you're visiting Nashville in October, that's definitely an awesome thing to add to your list of things to do.
Yes.
So we talked about renting a car before. You said that's probably the easiest way to get around Nashville. And obviously, there's a lot more to Tennessee than just Nashville. So, are there any great day trips from Nashville that you can take if you do have access to a car?
Yes, if you have access to a car, I'd suggest adding in some time to take a day trip from Nashville. One of the top places I recommend is going to Memphis. It's a bit of a drive. It's 3 to 4 hours to get to Memphis. But if you're a music lover, Memphis is the home of soul music. It's the birthplace of rock and roll. That's where Elvis Presley got his start. And if you're able to go there, you can see his house at Graceland, you can see Sun Studio, and you can also see the Stax Museum of American Soul. So it's worth it to spend a day driving out and driving back.
Wonderful. And for listeners who might be interested in heading to Memphis as a day trip from Nashville, Elizabeth has an article on the best things to do in Memphis. So definitely check that out after the episode.
One of the places I checked out recently was Long Hunter State Park. It's a state park about 30 to 40 minutes outside of Nashville. It's easy to get to. If you like to go hiking, if you like to go mountain biking, fishing, swimming, basically all the outdoor activities, you can do them at this park. I like that it's so close to Nashville, and I also like that it's so family friendly. So that's definitely at the top of my list as well.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of really good family friendly places to visit in the area.
Yes. My last place is also very family friendly. Chattanooga, Tennessee is also a top spot for families. It's a town surrounded by mountains. It's a beautiful place to visit. They have places like the Chattanooga Zoo, the Tennessee Aquarium, and there's also actually a historic train that you can take. It's called the Tennessee Valley Authority, and you're able to ride a historic train through the mountains, which is lots of fun for everyone.
Oh, yeah. So can you take that train from Nashville to Chattanooga, or is it just when you get there you can take it?
It's just when you get there. So it's these are historic trains, and they have kind of like a loop that they do that you're able to go on.
Okay, awesome. And do you know about how long that drive takes from Nashville to there?
It's between 2 to 3 hours.
Okay, so not too bad. Definitely can make it a day trip.
Mm, yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that list of great day trips from Nashville. So I want to ask you, what is the best time of year to visit Nashville?
Nashville has the best weather in the spring and the fall. So from about like April until June, and then in the fall from September and October. I would say that most people would probably come in the summer though. This is when the weather is going to be hot, but that's also when Nashville has the most things going on. So either way, you really can't go wrong. But just know that if you come in August and you're not used to the heat, you're going to want to drink lots of water and also make sure you have something to protect yourself from the sun.
Yes, definitely a good tip. Do you consider Nashville pretty safe?
Nashville is relatively safe. You know, it is a big city and you want to make sure you're aware, just like you are anytime you're traveling. The two things I would really suggest looking out for is first of all, you want to make sure you're locking your cars. There's not a lot of random violence, but people do sometimes break into cars in different areas. And the next thing is kind of personal safety. We mentioned before that Nashville has a big nightlife scene. So just as you're drinking, make sure you have a plan for how you're getting home and make sure that you're not the one driving if you're drinking.
Yeah, very good tip, especially because I think when you're out in a place that's pretty well known for partying, there's a lot of people there who aren't from there as well. So it's especially important, I think, in those kinds of environments to watch your back, make sure you're with a trusted group of people, and just play it safe. Always take an Uber if you're going to drink, and also make
Yeah.
sure you kind of have a buddy system so that you know you're getting home with the same people, and everybody has a great time that way.
Yes, Nashville is pretty safe. So I feel like occasionally people get a little bit lax when it comes to drinking. So just like, you're drinking somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I Nashville is one of the places in the US where you can actually drink in the street, correct? I think there's 3 major cities in the US where you can. Is Nashville one of them?
Yes, there are certain areas where you can drink in the streets. You need to stay like in the perimeter. But yeah,
Yeah, it can definitely get a little wild, so be careful, but still you're gonna have a fun time, of course. Okay, well, we're just coming up to the end of our episode here. So, if you could give us just one or a few reasons why someone should visit Nashville, just to kind of wrap everything up into one main idea, what would that main reason be?
Nashville has such a special energy. It's been able to retain its authenticness and character despite becoming a huge tourist destination. To me, it really does feel like each neighborhood is a small town. You have all the access to things a big city would give you. So you also get the museums, you get the restaurants, you get the nightlife while still getting that like small town feel.
And I wanna add to that too, like, I know Nashville is very well known as, like, a bachelorette party destination. Same with Scottsdale, Arizona, which is very close to where I am. I feel like those are, like, the 2 biggest US spots for that kind of
Oh, yes.
activity. Yeah, and I think people will fly in and all they'll experience is a crazy weekend bender with their friends, you know? And that's why I really appreciate you coming on here today and telling us about all these other amazing things to do in Nashville. It's not just like one massive like party destination, you know? There's so much more to it. The music, the history of the music especially is really unmatched in the States. And yeah, I think it's great that you're here to tell all these listeners about why else, you know, like come to Nashville not just for a bachelorette party or a birthday party, like come spend some time and really get to know one of the most iconic cities in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. There is just so much to the city. As much as I love downtown, I also want to show people what makes it special.
Absolutely. Yes, and, you know, there's always so much more to a city than just the downtown area, so all right, well, that's all for today. Listeners, check out Elizabeth's articles at travellemming.com and type in Nashville in the search bar. You can go more in depth on all the topics that we covered today. She has dozens of awesome guides that are super in depth. And anything that we talked about, you know, you can kind of do a deep dive. And if there's anything that we didn't cover, drop us a comment on the episode. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. We'd love to hear from our listeners. And of course, all of those articles that we're discussing, anything relevant to the episode is going to be linked in the show notes. So make sure to check them out after the episode. And listeners, if you have Instagram, you can check out Elizabeth on Instagram at Elizabeth Demolat. That's Elizabeth with a Z, Demolat. There, she's documenting her adventures around the state, including her quest to find the best chicken salad in Tennessee, which I would be very interested in knowing about. I love chicken salad. As well as visiting the 59 state parks in Tennessee with her family. So definitely go check her out on Instagram and make sure to check out her articles on Travel Lemming after the episode. We also host community meetups in 8 major cities in and around the US, including Nashville. So if you want to meet Elizabeth, make sure you check out the information on the next meetup in Nashville on our website. Again, that's travellemming.com. And thank you, Elizabeth, for telling us everything we need to know about visiting Nashville. I'm gonna go download some country music to prepare for my first official visit. You've been awesome today telling us all about the great things to do in and around the city, and I really appreciate you being here today. I hope you had a good time on the Travel Lemming podcast.
Thank you. It was great to be here, and I hope to see everyone in Nashville soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on the Travel Lemming podcast.